got a couple of quick things we need to do to get started. Could I ask for a roll call, please?
Councillor Linville?
Present.
Councillor West?
Yeah, roll call.
Right here.
Council President Aquavault?
Here.
Councillor Lehan?
Here.
Mayor Knapp?
Here. Could the staff please lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
I pledge allegiance
of the United
to the
States
flag
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. I'm open to a motion on order of agenda, reminding the council that we have suggested that citizen input be moved to the first agenda item. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the order of agenda with the modifications previously mentioned.
Thank you. Is there second by Councillor, motion by Councillor Aquavault, second by Councillor Lehan. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We would welcome our citizen to come forward and talk to us.
Cassandra?
Good evening, Mayor Knapp and council members. I just wanted to make a comment regarding the LOC committee and the recommendations that were made earlier, and really support the comment that Council Linville, I think that's her name, Council
Yes.
Linville,
Yeah.
that she made around prioritizing the digital equity and inclusion priority or proposal. And I support that because in the midst of COVID-19, people are making some very different decisions economically for their family. People have lost their jobs. Their hours have been cut. Many things have happened to people from an economic standpoint. So what their situation looked like prior to COVID-19 is very different now. And so those decisions that families are making could be that they're giving up their internet service. So I know prior to COVID-19, with my son's school, Meridian Middle School, they were already offering hotspots for kids to take home when this initially happened. And there were a number of kids that took them home. So I know now that we're in COVID-19, that situation probably has worsened for a lot of families. So I agree that we should make the digital equity and inclusion proposal a priority, even though it may not affect as many within Wilsonville, and it's more of a statewide proposal, but there are more families that are suffering economically and may have to make some decisions regarding their internet service. So I just wanted to make that comment and kind of reinforce Council Linville's comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I did not hear your name. We need to have it in the record somewhere.
I apologize. It's Cassandra Edwards. Cassandra Edwards.
Yes, Ms. Edwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, staff, any other comments, either present or virtual?
Do we have any virtual? Nope, that's it, Mayor.
All right, thank you. That will bring us to mayor's business. Let me see briefly here. Several activities have been going on, I guess. We had a C4 Clackamas County Coordinating Committee Metro Subcommittee meeting on the 15th, where we talked about elements that were on agenda. C4 meets 7:30 in the morning till about 9:30 or 9 o'clock. At a Clackamas County Business Alliance meeting midday that day. Subsequently had JPAC the following morning on the 16th, early morning meeting again. And we had a county mayors and chairs meeting that afternoon. So lots of midday meetings last week. Upcoming, we have been asked to participate in a phone call meeting with Congressman Schrader tomorrow morning and be talking about the needs of local jurisdictions in the COVID era and what might be done to augment what has been done so far for municipalities as well as for individuals. Have scheduled a Greater Portland Inc. board meeting, which will be an early morning meeting, and also then we have a midday meeting scheduled for the mayors and for the Greater Portland Inc. Small Cities Consortium, which runs through early afternoon. So all of those are important things that we're trying to keep going and have occasionally been canceled, but there is still work going forward on all those fronts. I guess I should mention that the first council meeting in August is going to be not typical, and we are planning on announcing that, and I'm sure it'll be published ahead of time for August 3rd. Let's go into our communications then, if we can, starting with the state of the district, being the fire district, I believe. COVID-19 Chief Weiss.
Can you hear me okay?
There he is. Good evening.
Well, good evening, Mayor, City Councilors, might I add, neighbors. It's nice to see all of you again. Obviously, we appreciate Wilsonville staff and council, and of course, since I am a resident, it's fun to actually listen to a council meeting from time to time, so lots of stuff going on everywhere. Hopefully, everybody's doing fine. I wanted to start off by, first of all, thanking Mayor Knapp for reaching out. Gosh, it must have been the beginning of this COVID-19, and we had a conversation about what we can do and ways we could partner to make things better for our communities. So I do appreciate that, and it means a lot to the fire district and to me personally. Before I give my report, this would be typically when I present a whole bunch of data and tell you everything that's been going on in the fire district over the past year. A fair amount has actually gone on down here in Wilsonville, but good things have come from that. But instead, we're going to talk about COVID-19. And I just want to acknowledge our gratitude for Wilsonville Police Department, Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. And while I think we can all agree that there are some systemic changes that need to address racism and inequality, we know how hard our law enforcement partners work in this and other communities. And they do other things too besides protect us. I happened to participate in the Wilsonville High School graduation because my daughter was one of the unfortunate ones that graduated 2020. And law enforcement was there the entire day congratulating our youth as they graduated from Wilsonville High School. So they are fantastic partners and will continue to be so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll through some bullets about COVID-19 and what the fire district is doing. And if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer some questions at the end. So like most of our city partners, we're very focused on logistics, operations, and communications, everything it seems related to the pandemic. Our facilities do remain closed, and most of our staff, day staff, work remotely, but our non-response personnel are still responding to all questions, concerns, anything related to inspections, plan review, and other city needs. So those services are still happening, and we're actually starting to do a little bit more with schools and inspections ahead of the coming school year, whenever that does occur. We've had a COVID-19 task force since early March, and it was very challenging at first. Organization wasn't so much a problem. We do task force all the time in the fire service, but it's all the unknown that this task force was dealing with, and they came together to work fantastically. Now it's a smooth running machine that meets every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning to discuss our response to COVID-19 and how we can make changes. We're staying in constant contact with our public partners, whether those are in the county or our own medical advisors. We have 2 doctors that information who constantly research to make sure that we can protect our employees as as well as can be expected. We've equipped with all kinds of new equipment that we didn't have before or enough of before. We trained and we constantly communicate with our front line through various means. We're probably known for keeping clean stations. We clean our stations every morning. Those of you that have done a community academy with us realize we clean in the morning and clean at night. I can tell you that that's upgraded since what we used to do or what we did before. It's constant cleaning to include our apparatus, which while we keep our apparatus clean, it's a different level of apparatus cleaning that we do now. And we actually send out our transport units, such as the rescue that's in Wilsonville here, about once a week for a thorough disinfecting with the type of sanitizers that are approved for cleaning apparatus and equipment. So we're constantly keeping things clean. In terms of testing for COVID-19, as you probably know, we have roughly 600 employees. We've tested 50, and we only test employees that have signs and symptoms or there was an exposure, a high-level suspicion of an exposure. So out of all of our employees, we've had 2 employees that got COVID-19. One was fairly early, and it was a fairly serious case of COVID-19. The second was more recent, and it was the milder symptoms that you may see on TV. Both employees are doing fantastically, and the first one is back to work and serving the community and with a renewed interest in COVID-19 and research and helping us make good decisions. So they wanted to turn it into something positive, considering what they had to go through with their signs and symptoms. So our current PPE supply is sufficient, but I don't know how much PPE you have to get for city workers, but what we noticed recently was a challenge again in getting PPE, kind of like what happened early on in March and April, where it was really challenging for us to get PPE. And I have to say, the communities and the businesses and what they gave to the fire district during this time was so much appreciated. And it was small things, it was singular items, and it was large donations with boxes of different equipment. And while we may not have used it all, it certainly makes you feel better knowing that your community is willing to give back and help us be. So we're hoping that we're going to stockpile enough in case there's even more of a surge. We anticipate using more PPE into the fall, but we'll see how that goes. One thing we did do very early on, a couple things we did early on, but one was we went to a reusable personal protective equipment. And so we knew that the disposable Tyvek bunny type suits that we had were not sufficient for day-to-day EMS operations. And so we made the decision that we're going to go to a less comfortable, slightly more scary, large gray plastic suit we could decontaminate and use again. And this actually helped us in 2 ways. One, our employees felt like we were providing the best and highest level of protection to protect them against COVID-19. And 2, it allowed us to slow down on the use of our disposable items that we can't reuse. So we were able to make it last a little longer, if you will. And we continue to have those non-disposable suits, and if we have to pull them out because we have lack of resources, we will do so. Now, I don't know if you've seen a firefighter drive by lately in the suits, but sometimes it can be a little bit startling as they arrive in their, what I would call an alien type suit. But I do appreciate the public's understanding, because I keep stressing it's not about that call, it's about the one after, the one after, the one after. And up to this point, we have not missed a 911 call, and I don't want to miss one because we have a bunch of people getting sick. So we will continue to wear the proper PPE that keeps our people safe. We will continue to respond and keep ourselves healthy and safe. So you may have noticed over the past few months there's been a push in public education, traditional media, our social media, community safety. We have public service announcements about physical distancing, staying home, wearing masks. If you saw me say hold the line too many times, I apologize for that. Our government affairs wanted me to do that PSA. I was very happy to do it, but it seemed like it was on a lot. So I don't have any more coming up that I'm aware of, so you won't have to see me anytime soon. So we had our first COVID task force in early March, and then we recognized that at some point in time, we don't know when, but at some point in time, we're going to have to reintegrate our day personnel back into our office buildings. And so we created a task force number 2, and task force number 2's job was to try and understand COVID, try and understand what CDC recommendations were. Understand what OHA was asking us to do and the governor was asking us to do, and what is the best possible way to bring people back to work. And while we don't have a timeline for when these people will be able to come back to work, Task Force 2 had to look in their crystal ball and figure out how we actually get them back. So I'm happy to report we have a plan. We have a large documented plan for how we will get back to business as usual, but we do not operate in the same way that the state does with phases. In our fire district, we operate in modes. And typically in the fire service, that's how you operate, is in modes. So it's very easily understood by all our personnel. And the message we want to send to our employees is that it's not permanent. We can go from one mode to another and back again seamlessly. And so that's how it's set up on a national standard called PACE, and we will follow those guidelines and the guidelines of Task Force 2 when it comes time to reintegrate. Someday, will we wake up and say it was just a dream? I don't think so, but these are the times that we deal with, and extraordinary times, extraordinary measures. Now, not to be outdone by anyone else and only have 2 task forces, I decided I need a 3rd task force. And the 3rd task force is my economic forecast task force. And this is the group with our CFO and other very talented and smart people from across our organization and the finance department. And their job was to look into the future and determine what's going to happen based on COVID-19 to income to the fire district. How can we be financially sustainable if things go poorly? And so they developed criteria based on a 1% loss in revenue, a 2% loss in revenue, and a 5% loss in revenue, any of which would be detrimental. But how would we respond in that event? And I can tell you we're doing fine now, but in the event that we reach one of those thresholds, one of those triggers, we have levers that we can pull that they developed for me so that we can maintain our financial sustainability. And this organization has always prided itself on being able to weather a storm and to take good care of the public's funds. And we will continue to do that, and we will weather this storm like we have other ones in the past. So Task Force 3, a difficult job, but I do appreciate what they're doing. In terms of what we're doing outside of COVID-19, we continue to have our capital projects and our capital construction program continue. We are finishing up on our logistics building, which is in Tualatin, and we continue to work hard to get that station in Charbonneau. And while it is a temporary station, kind of looking at the occupy it for 5 years or so, we have a location. We're working through the process with plans and building, and we hope to have that station open and running, I'll say late fall, just to be safe in case you hold me to it. But they're working really hard to get through it, and I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Wilsonville city staff for helping our staff keep this project going and move it forward. We have been trying to represent that area of our fire district for a long time, and this is a fantastic opportunity to do so. So we're really looking forward to it. So thank you, city staff, for your help there. We've been sending out information and current updates and staff reports to your staff and other staff in the fire district. There for a while was on a weekly basis. Now we do it about every other week, and I try to give you the most up-to-date information about what is going on in the fire district with COVID-19. So with that, one more thing, sorry. Thank you so much for delaying this and letting me actually present this in person. I was gone for a little bit and couldn't be at the other meeting, and you were kind enough to let me push it. I know some of the chiefs sometimes do this for me, but you got to know I want to do this one. So this one's fun. But anyway, so if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those for you.
Well, thank you so much. And I wouldn't want all your data to go to waste. So one of our data specialists on the team is Councillor President Aquavault there, your Villebois neighbor. So I'm sure if you routed the data to her, she could give us a quick rundown.
I can run over.
The thing from our conversation early in the COVID response, Chief, was your example that you offered about your medical response people being called out to a scene where people were reporting symptoms, but they weren't saying that it might be COVID. They were indicating that, they had some other problem, and your people then arrive on the scene and discover that they've got a possible or even probable case that they have to protect against. And it really struck me at that point how difficult that would be to operate in that kind of an environment. Has it gotten any better, or do you just assume the worst in every case?
Yeah, well, a couple things to that. One is we do assume, for the most part, in every case, not quite like we used to, but when we spoke, the stress level in the organization, the fear of these fearless individuals that work for the fire district was palpable. And with so many unknowns, there were so many concerns. And so to answer your question specifically, it has improved. And I would give some credit to the state, the counties, the cities, our own government affairs division for getting the information out, for continuing to say, hey, just be honest. We're going to show up regardless, so it doesn't matter, but it will help us if we know, so we can take proper precautions for us, for you, and move to the next person, the next call, the next patient. And that's what I was trying to stress with you, Mr. Mayor, was we want to do it, but if you give us the best information, we can do our job better for sure. So yes, it's absolutely improved.
Council, other questions? For Chief, Councillor West.
Hi there. Thanks for coming and presenting to us today. I have when you guys arrive on a scene, do you guys automatically wear PPE, and are you guys wearing face shields? I only ask because I work front lines on COVID right now, a couple days a week. I've been reassigned there by OHSU. And so I'm on the front lines there. And so I'm just kind of curious, like, what the PPE is and what that looks like. And then the training that you guys offer on how to appropriately utilize PPE, because you guys are at risk. And then you may already know this, but I do know that we are testing. Medical and first-hand responders automatically qualify for testing, period, no questions asked, even if they haven't had a direct known exposure, or if they're not showing the appropriate signs or symptoms. I know that we are testing right now first-hand responders, at least at our site, and we have the most robust testing sites in the state at OHSU. So I didn't know if you also knew that. If you didn't, I'll just share that with you as an option. But I was also just curious, what does that training and PPE look like on a generic call?
Sure. So I was aware of that, and another one of our neighbors, a friend of ours, works at OHSU too, and is out there doing the testing. And we've sent several people through there. Some I think have done it on their own. We do have our own. Yeah, you may have. Yeah, you probably did. So in terms of the PPE, and I know you're familiar with most of the PPE that we have, but it's all over the board. It's a range, and that's how we designed it, was so that they can upgrade or downgrade depending on the call. I will tell you, they will not wear that highest level of PPE on every single call. So they will look to the information we receive at dispatch. It gives us a little bit better indication. But you'll see at a minimum, you'll see the surgical mask. We can do N95 masks. Then we can do full face respirators. We're supposed to get the half face respirators with the P100 cartridges, which are difficult to communicate in, but certainly reusable. And we're fit tested for all that equipment annually. So we have to be fit tested. A lot of the other suits that we use, and there's varying levels of suits too. One is a disposable Tyvek suit, like I mentioned, with kind of a mesh in the back. And we were trying to hold on to those because of days like today. The fully decontaminatable suits, you're just dripping in sweat when you're done with a basic call. So we have all these different levels. We actually got trained on the suits. That either happened in the academy or it happened, say, back when Ebola was out. We had to pass around a lot of suits for that. And so there's a lot of training that happened there too. But all of our firefighters have hazmat operations, and they may have changed the name now. I dated myself there, but awareness and operations, which gives them some of that training too. So varying levels of suits. No, there's not a specific one that they have to wear, and they're starting to get very good at call type and going, that's this suit. But there for a while, they had to stop and kind of think which one for this call, and then get dressed.
Are you guys using face shields?
No.
No? I don't know. I only bring it up because we wear face shields and exposure because we know that COVID aerosol in the air can get and infect through the eye. That's an entry point. And so we're wearing face shields with surgical masks and then the TerraWave. I was just curious if, I know you guys have some of the other bigger masks like full face options. I was just curious if you guys also are utilizing the disposable face shields.
Yeah, and I don't believe we are. I know we were donated a bunch, and so early on there might have been some people that were using it as we started to figure out what the best way to respond was. But our highest risk are the ones that are doing the transport. So your rescue here in Wilsonville, they typically will wear a higher level because they have to be in that closed, smaller space in the back of a rescue all the way to a hospital. So they're wearing some of those higher levels. I don't believe they wear the shields, but we certainly have them available if they chose to. Right now, we just switched to, if you can't have 6 feet of distance, even in the fire station, you'll wear a surgical mask now. So you should see our people wearing surgical masks, and if you don't, you know where I live. So
thanks for your work.
Cool. Councillor Linville. There you go.
See, thank you for coming. It's great to see you here, and I just wanted you to know that there is such excitement, if there could be excitement about having a station in Charbonneau. Our neighbors, we tried, I think, with trying to accommodate that in the maintenance area, and it just didn't work out. And so we are excited that other site appears to be available, and it looks like it's going to work out. I know that you are frequent visitors to our community, and so we appreciate everything that you do, and it's just going to be great for people to have that knowledge that you're so close. So thank you very much, and thank all of your responders, both your firefighters and your emergency medical staff, for all the great work. So thank you on behalf of all of us in Wilsonville.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you for the kind words. I might be more excited than those people to have that station up there. I don't know, and then we're going to keep looking, for something that's going to be permanent in that area too. So we will continue to do so. I don't know the time frame, but we will continue to look for something more permanent.
Councillor Aquavault.
Thanks so much for joining our meeting this evening and sharing some information. And I always appreciate your openness to discuss and just converse with people. One thing that I've been wondering about, it feels like we've been in this a long time, even though it's only been a couple months, right? But as we've learned more about COVID and there's still a lot of very distressing information and things about the virus out there. But one thing that I had heard early on was that there was such fear in the community that some people were waiting and not seeking medical attention maybe when they should, and waiting to a very, very critical point. And of course, you would be on the receiving end of some of those calls. I wonder if that is something that you have seen happen in the community, or if it's gotten better, if people are understanding that it's important to maintain our health needs and address health needs as they come up, and that all of the people that are with Tualatin Valley are doing protocols to try to ensure people's health and safety, between calls and all of those types of concerns. Are you able to talk about any of that?
Oh, sure. And I don't know if you and I had a conversation about that specifically, but there was early on, there was a lot of concern that people would get extra sick because they'd be afraid to go to a doctor or afraid to go to the hospital or afraid to go out. And so we were very concerned that they would stay home and get more sick. And so when they would finally call, we would have very sick patients rather than mostly sick patients. But you know what? We really didn't see that. And there was for a brief period of time, we turned off the pulse point activation for cardiac arrest because we didn't think people would actually go to another house in that heightened fear time. We've since turned that back on again. I did see a report the other day that they thought there was an increase in cardiac arrest at home because people were waiting too long. But here, we really haven't seen an appreciable change or difference. We did see a downturn in call volume. That quickly came back. And so part of me, I wonder if, because it didn't go on forever and people actually were able to get out and maybe feel a little bit better about their situation, they were able to seek help. I don't know that we're seeing anybody that's any more sick than usual because they delayed calling 911. But that's sort of anecdotal, Councillor. I don't have to support that. I'll get you some.
Okay, that's good. No, but that's good to hear. I'm glad that it sounds like the community is continuing to look out and take care of, all of the other factors that people are dealing with, in addition to COVID right now. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, Chief, thank you so much for coming and seeing us. It's very helpful, and certainly appreciate your work. And seconding Councillor Linville's words, please convey our thanks to all of your people.
I will absolutely do so. Thanks so much for having me again. It's great to see you all again.
All righty. We'll see. That brings us then to our city staff COVID update. I think we may have a couple of different things here. Mr. Cosgrove?
Yep. Martin Montalvo is going to get us going.
All right.
Hello, this is Martin Montalvo, Public Works Operations Manager. With me on the line is Matt Baker. He's our facilities supervisor. He's going to help me give you guys some of the information on where we are with our current COVID response for the city. So I'm going to share screen here, and hopefully you guys are able to see the presentation that I have for you. So, first things I want to cover some of the federal funds and other avenues that we've been pursuing for trying to make the city whole financially. So the first avenue we've been approaching is there's been a recent release of CARES funds. These are Social Security dollars that were set out with recent legislation. The state got a huge allotment of funds in the neighborhood of 150 billion. It's over $1 billion. I don't know the exact amount. I apologize. Washington County got a unique allotment. City of Portland got a unique allotment. Clackamas County did not, and most of the cities in the state did not. So the state has taken the approach that they've taken their federal funds, and they're divvying it up amongst all of the cities on a per capita basis. So based on the city's population and the amount of funds that the state was issued, the city's maximum allotment will be about $753,000. Of that, we submitted our first round several weeks ago and got a check back in a few weeks, already being granted back $336,000 in expenses incurred to date. So that was actually very welcomed and surprising to get it see it so quickly. The other thing we're working on is FEMA public assistance. This is a more long-term grant avenue. I've mentioned it several times in the EOC. This is something that it might be years down the line if and ever the city sees any restitution or assistance to the FEMA process. It's Homeland Security dollars, works towards more long-term projects as a result of the event and activities to respond to it. And to date, there's no funds that have been received. We have portals that have been set up by the federal government for both of these sites that we have active memberships on, and we're submitting information through those, meeting with our project managers on the federal level as needed, and are moving on both of these avenues. There's a couple other grant programs that we've submitted, one of them being SAFE, who's our workman's comp provider, who restored the city to another $27,000 for expenses incurred for ensuring employee safety. Some of the programs that we put in place were eligible for those funds. This is a slide you've seen before, just kind of reiterate, we're addressing the new normal. So how are we getting there? Deliberate, planned efforts to facilitate that. We're still working with our telework options. We're still doing remote meetings, reduced travel, but we have opened several of the facilities, I'm sure you're aware. And there's new protocols that are either in place or constantly evolving. So I'm going to go over a few of these. I know that many of you probably haven't gotten a chance to make it back into City Hall, so I'm going to share some of the things that we've been doing in the buildings themselves. This is a chart that's been updated since the last time we presented to you. It's basically outlining how we are with staffing. Shows that our staff are still actively showing up. Our re-entry plan has, knock on wood, been working fairly well. Majority of staff, we're at 90.8 of all of our staff are showing up every day across a 14-week time period. The frequency of staff self-isolating or caretaking, as you can see, it's the top red section, continues to reduce. Staff are actually starting to take vacations, taking some time and standing down and getting some rest and that little mental health that everybody needs. But people are showing up and still contributing to the organization. Face coverings. So I'm sure you've seen these everywhere, and you'll see them everywhere at City Hall. Following the governor's instructions, we looked at all of our facilities, and we said, well, the way we read it, unless you're in your individual office and you can close the door, any of these common areas is going to be very difficult to maintain that 6-foot social distance. So the EOC made the proactive decision that in the facilities, the face masks are going to be recovered. I can say staff has been very receptive. Most of the people I speak to are appreciative that we're making everyone wear masks to protect them as well as to protect the others. Sanitation stations. So we've been installing additional sanitation stations. You probably remember those two sad little kiosks when you walked into City Hall 14 weeks ago. There are now a good 15 of these throughout the organization, and there's one of these on every bus that the city operates. There's signage incorporated with all of them. We've gone to one vendor that has a steady supply that can keep us stocked on hand sanitizing chemicals. And then we've also introduced a new device that actually is a stand that helps provide hand sanitizer, face masks if you don't have one, and a tissue if you need to blow your nose. So we're really appreciative to have those out in all the facilities, and staff seems and customers seem to appreciate it. So, revised work practices. So this is a slide of Brian giving just a staff update during the heat of the COVID when it first got started, and everybody just, when you get a chance and the sun's out, let's all go outside and have our staff meeting outside. The other thing that we're doing is much more Zoom meeting. This is an actual slide from a pre-application planning meeting with the consultants, meeting with the clients and staff, providing input and information. From the clients that we've spoken to, seems to be very well received. They appreciate us being considerate of their safety. Cleanings. So I mentioned earlier, supply was at first very difficult issue we had to deal with. We've made some proactive decisions and decided we're not just going to keep what we would normally keep. We keep an excessive amount. I wouldn't say excessive. We keep an appropriate amount in case we get into a second wave. That's Matt Baker there, kind of overseeing all of our supply that we keep. We're also taking advantage of some staff that might have some light duty or alternate work that's been assigned to them and reassigning them to help with cleanliness. All of the facilities that are open are getting touch points. Restrooms are getting additional cleanings throughout the day to ensure the safety of staff and customers. These are some of the engineering controls that we put in place. So if you recall, we showed you a map and a plan of all these things we're going to put in place. These are some of the plexiglass shields that we've installed at our customer service counters. We have more of these going out into additional facilities as we speak. We've looked at alternative technologies and just some of the tried and true. So we've got some stanchions out where needed to maintain that social distance where we weren't able to get plexiglass. And we're looking at alternate technology. This is a UV box for disinfecting mail or packages that come in. We have ozone generators, which, just a point of interest. We got that idea from the fire department, talking to a colleague of mine that runs the fire rescue division, the chief over there. He and I were talking and said, how are you disinfecting the ambulances? And we said, great, we're going to do it on the buses. So we're using ozone on those facilities, UV where needed. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about some of the adjustments that we're doing to our HVAC system. We're looking at additional technologies that we can use in the HVAC system, but we're also looking at how we control the systems overall to assure that we're getting maximum airflow and fresh air coming in, and where it can be filtered, it's filtered as much as possible. So to give you a little background on HVAC, so first of all, I am not an HVAC expert. I've got Matt on the line, and he'll help wherever I can't seem to answer appropriately. So we're going to go over economizers. Basically, that's a component of the HVAC system that helps you achieve your energy efficiency, which has always been our goal pre-COVID, by mixing some of the outside air and some of your already pre-cooled interior air. So what we've done, and this is industry-accepted practice, we've been checking with all the experts and looking at both the HVAC experts as well as environmental engineering experts, and we've switched all of the economizers to supply the maximum extent of fresh air. So they're basically taking as much exterior air as possible and trying to cycle that through the facilities so that we're not just recycling that interior air constantly. So we need to be sure that our facilities have various ages. Some of them are newer systems, some of them are older systems. So we're trying to figure out and set in the perfect dial points for each of these facilities to get that maximum airflow. So only Smart is the only facility that can manage to go year-round in full economizer mode. So that's one of the things we've already been able to determine. Other facilities, for about 6 months out of the year, we're going to have to try and figure out ways to gauge it back. And it's a sliding scale between fresh air versus filtration. So we're going to show you what our plan is for the winter here in a second. Right now, we're operating all of the units at 100% fresh air. That's also going to result in two things: higher energy consumption, our electrical bills will go up, and wear and tear on the units. So the motors that run these HVAC systems typically aren't running 100% economizer mode. So we're going to have some increased maintenance and some increased long-term costs associated with running these in this alternate format. So let's talk filters. So MERV filters stands for Minimum Efficiency Reporting Value. So when you go to Home Depot and you're replacing your household filter, it'll have a rating on there, and that basically tells you how thick the particle or the board within that filter are to filter particles moving through your HVAC system. So it goes from 1 to 16, the higher number, the higher grade of filtration. Hospitals are usually running 13 through 16, and then when you get into the HEPA filters, those are greater than 16. So the higher MERV that we put in all of our facilities, the higher we're asking the system to work, the more energy that's going to take and the more wear and tear. Typically, most of the systems, HVAC systems, you're looking at a 15 to 20-year lifespan. For a few of ours, we're already over that. Several of them, we're going to push them a little bit harder, and they may not make that 20. We're hoping that we get 15 out of them. So currently, the city has 130 HVAC system components. That's not the number of HVAC systems. Those are the different components that we service and maintain. 18 of those 130 components are already at the upper end of their life expectancy, and 16 are already past their life expectancy. This is a good statistic for you, because it's not that, oh, we let these things just age. We've really taken care of these things and been able to maintain them, that they're making them through their life expectancy at this age and still functioning for us. So currently, all of the facilities are equipped with MERV 8 filters. So that's standard. And when the target was energy efficiency and cooling and heating, MERV 8 was a great option. We have 117 of them. Currently, throughout all the facilities are being changed every 2 months. We have MERV 13 filters on order, but just like surgical masks were difficult to find and hand sanitizer were difficult to find 2 months ago, MERV 13 filters are difficult to find right now. So our plan is looking at these MERV 13 filters when we need to get out of 100% economizer mode and dial back into more interior air, running that interior air through a much thicker filter to be sure to filter out the interior air as much as possible. This is a chart that shows you basically all of our systems. The second column will give you the age of the HVAC systems in each of the facilities. When you see multiple numbers, that tells you that there's three separate HVAC systems running several separate systems running several separate zones in each of the facilities. The economizer functionality basically tells you, do we have remote control of this, and can we basically change the settings on a dial from a computer system? Or do we have to get into the actual system and manually change these? For many of our HVAC systems, we've been making upgrades, and we're continuing with that program so that we can dial this in remotely from the facility or from our computer system rather than having to step into the facility and manually open louvers. MERV 8 ratings, I've already explained all of our filters right now are still at MERV 8, and then those are general filter quantities that we have for all of the systems. So let's talk alternate technology. So where are we looking into to try and invest some of our dollars and some of our time into? So ultraviolet UVC, it's been around for quite a few years now, and we're looking at it. The difficulty is you need a lot of residence time for UVC to be effective with treating viruses. And the air that we're pushing through our HVAC systems are moving at cubic feet per minute. So trying to create that residence time with a fixed light is difficult, but we're trying to explore it and come up with all the alternate plans for utilizing it. So it's good for treating viral and bacterial, well-documented success rate. Also, UVC LEDs are coming out on the market soon, which are going to reduce the disposal cost of the traditional mercury vapor bulbs, and also reduce the cost of the UVC systems because LEDs are considerably cheaper. Other technology we're looking at is bipolar ionization. This is basically similar to like the ozone treatment that we're doing on the buses. You're passing electrical charge through a couple anodes within the system. You're creating a free radical oxygen molecule out there that wants to bind to something. It'll typically react to something organic and kill it. This is still emerging technology. It looks promising. I'd like to be on the leading edge, but not necessarily the bleeding edge of technology, so we're looking at it, but it's not something that I think we're advocating for at this time. Any of these solutions right now is something more long-term as we rehab some of the facilities to try and implement them. Right now, we're working with the controls and working with the filtration system. We've got a couple consultants in the environmental engineering world that Matt speaks to, and getting their input. And from what we're seeing, we're on track with a good plan for addressing it. With that, I don't have any questions. Matt Baker and I are available if you have any questions for us.
Anybody have questions they would like to ask? Councillor Lehan first. We can't hear you yet.
No.
There you go.
I can see that. I just wanted to ask about if there's a way on the HVAC that you can evaluate circulation within a building or within a given volume of space for things like dead zones. In other words, especially in a place like the library where you have multiple stacks or separations, and we're putting up increasing numbers of plexiglass separations for good reason, but does that then inadvertently create dead zones where we're not getting the air changes or circulation, and how do we evaluate for that?
So this is a question that I'll refer to Matt. One thing I will tell you is we are looking at some programs that we're initiating with our control systems. So our control vendor is programming into our electronic controls for all the HVAC what they call a pandemic mode. So there's an economizer mode, there's a energy efficiency mode, and they're creating a pandemic mode. One of the things that we can do with the pandemic mode, and we're looking at this right now, is possibly turning the HVAC systems on 2 hours prior to anybody occupying the building, trying to get a full cycle of air fluctuation throughout the entire building before there's a human being in there. So our systems for energy efficiency shut down overnight, and then they don't come on until half hour or so before staff start to arrive. If we try and get that air circulation out a couple hours ahead of time, that can help with trying to reduce some of those dead spots. In terms of spotting individual dead spots, I can't speak to that. I'll hand it over to Matt to see if he has an answer for you now.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Matt Baker, Facility Supervisor. I would say with the reference to the sneeze guards, I believe the surface area of them and the way that they are only a certain height, I don't think they would influence the airflow too much. One thing I would say with the increased air volume that we're pushing into those buildings, you're going to have a slight positive pressure in the building. That's going to keep that air moving for those returns, which we're exhausting 100% also. So I don't see that being an issue so much.
Councillor West.
Great topic, fantastic. A lot of the cutting edge new research as things develop with COVID-19, we're learning a lot. And some of the evidence even coming out of Harvard and through their School of Medicine and Epidemiology departments are showing a correlation between warmer times and air conditioning as we rebreathe air conditioning, moving these particles and causing an increase in infection. We're also learning that it's not just droplets that go 6 feet any longer. It's that plus the aerosol where the droplets actually stay suspended, the smaller ones, and then that gets caught up into the air conditioning systems. And when you have 5 or more people and the CO2 begins to climb in that room, then you're seeing a much likelihood, a risk of infection. I recap that because in your presentation, just looking at like all of the great measures that the city has taken, but in the offices when people take a potential PPP off or a mask off and they're still exposed to rebreathing air that is circulating potentially infectious particles, I don't know if that's been really looked at a little bit more closely about masks in offices, just something that I thought of when you're doing your presentation, and maybe there's new best practices around that and air conditioning. And then I think there is just a lot of new evidence coming out as we learn more about the virus and the temperatures get warmer, that air conditioning and the ability to remove that air or to sterilize the air is a big culprit to the spikes we're seeing in some of the biggest hotbeds. And just being aware of that and being able to make those, like we're talking about now, have this important discussion, I think is vital. But I just want to reiterate that there is strong evidence coming out now as of the end of June and early July that air conditioning is a culprit for the spread of COVID.
Other comments? Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your update on that. Mr. Cosgrove, do you want to add anything about the topic we mentioned earlier about gatherings in our community that have been a little problematic and that we are more aware of, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think I emailed some, if not all of you on this topic, so I can just tell you we have had some internal discussions with staff about how to approach these things. What we're kind of confronted with is the fact that, even the governor's even stated as much, that 90% of the executive orders she's issuing are basically self-policed. So we've had concerns about people calling and emailing about customers customers not wearing masks in certain grocery stores in town. So we've done our best to call the corporate offices to see kind of what the response is. But specifically on the party that happened in Villebois, the governor's also told local law enforcement to not approach these things with a heavy hand. So, and with everything going on with law enforcement right now, that makes a lot of sense. And they don't want to be put in the position of having to, arrest people and cite them into court for misdemeanors for, not following executive orders. So the whole point of this is it's really tricky right now. So we are really relying on our residents to be good citizens and to do the right thing. So the approach that we're taking with law enforcement is more of an educational thing. So if we do get a report and somebody calls in something that looks like it's a violation of the governor's order, the officers will approach and basically just try to use an educational approach to explain to people that they shouldn't be gathering in this way. If it's something that looks like it's completely out of control, that's a different story. So it's one of those things we'll just have to monitor. We are encouraging people, if they do see these gatherings, to call in. We've listed some resources for folks if they see things like this happening, that they can call and make us aware so that we can respond. But we're really not taking a heavy hand with these types of things. Now, if we have somebody that's repeatedly violating the governor's executive orders, then that's a different story. Then that might be cause for somebody to get cited with the misdemeanor that's outlined in the governor's order. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councilor President Aquavault.
In the spirit of education, could you cover a little about what the situation is with parks as far as groups in parks, reservation of park areas? Because I think there was some incorrect information that maybe the party in Villebois was in some way approved or something like that. So
yeah, well,
you're going to walk us through where we are with parks?
We are not doing any reservations for any city parks. So that was incorrect information given to the officers at the time that they responded. So we're not reserving any facilities because that would be a violation of the governor's orders of gatherings, which I think is still 25, correct? So you can't have more than 25 people gathering together. 10, sorry. It's been reduced to 10.
Yeah.
10, yeah.
Have we considered posting that information at obvious park gathering places?
We have posted that in parks.
Okay, so like where the big group gathered in Villebois, were there postings there? I don't know.
Was it posted at the time?
I don't remember.
I know it. I believe it is posted now. I'm not sure if it was posted at the time.
We don't rent that one anymore.
But that's not our park yet.
Oh. Well, the homeowner association is probably not going to post it unless we provide the sign. I don't know. Other
we don't
questions?
rent Sophia, is what you said, right?
We don't rent it. It's our
Okay.
park, but we don't rent it.
Okay, you're talking about Sophia. It's our park. We don't rent that facility out.
Yeah. It seems like maybe having a posting there in an obvious place, so when people start inadvertently getting together and look around, all of a sudden, if there's a sign there, they say, whoa, well, maybe. Councilor West.
When it was going on, I got a very frantic phone call from somebody in the community who had a severe COVID issue in their very own family. We're probably still dealing with the trauma of that. I know that we don't want to be heavy-handed. I totally get it and understand it. But, that was so excessive and disrespectful to the neighbors that live here that it was appalling. And people are really having to sacrifice a lot right now, and how tone deaf it was and how fearful it caused a lot of people in the community, and that just down the street from where Councilor Aquavault and I live. I wish that we had a little bit more, and I don't know, maybe I'm just, because I'm mad about it, and my neighbors had every right to be mad about it. I don't know, I maybe like a little sign or whatever, or being very passive about it, but that was not just like a little bit of an egregious violation while everyone's trying to navigate this. That was a blatantly rude, horrible thing to do in our community. That's just my opinion, and I don't know that fine line, and I trust you, Brian, and I know you know this, but people were, the man who called me had every reason to be absolutely, in his situation specifically, had every reason to really be alarmed by it. And it wasn't just like a minor violation of the governor's order that we're all trying to navigate and do better by. It wasn't like an oopsie. It was, and I don't know, maybe our hands are tied and it's a tough situation, but I wish that there was more we could do to protect the people of Villa Blanc.
So what I will say about that specific party is that the officers did show up, I believe, around 5, and they were told or assured by the people that were at the party that they were going to go ahead and break it up and go home. Some of them did, but then we found out later that obviously they didn't honor what they told those officers when they first arrived. And so what the lesson learned on that is trust but verify. Giving them a reasonable amount of time to break up that party in the future, say 30 minutes, and then coming back to check that they've actually done that. So that is an additional step we will be taking.
Anybody else? All right, why don't we move along then to the third listed communications item, which was our 2020 community survey results.
Terrific. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Hi. Mayor Knapp, councilors, this is Bill Evans, Communications and Marketing Manager, and I'm here to present the findings from the recently completed National Community Survey. For those unfamiliar, this is a survey the city undertakes every 2 years to get an idea of resident satisfaction with various services and amenities. As you can see from the map on this slide, it's a representative sample. The survey is mailed to a number of people randomly. There's also an opt-in element from which we got an additional 149 responses, so the results you're going to be seeing tonight are blended with both response groups. They deemed that the results were similar enough to do that. So this survey combines the responses from 630 residents with a 4% margin of error. Before we get into the results themselves, these are the types of things, the metrics that they're observing and comparing Wilsonville to. So there's 2 facets of this survey for comparison. One is comparing Wilsonville in 2020 to Wilsonville in 2018. One is comparing Wilsonville to other cities throughout the country. More than 600 cities participate in a similar survey. The 10 facets of livability you saw on the last slide, those are ranked by people who take the survey in terms of importance. So as you can see, nothing's really sort of emerged in that top row as a highest priority facet from our community. If you look at that last column, though, you'll see that those 3 areas broadly are where Wilsonville's results exceeded the national benchmark. As I mentioned, trends over time, how we compare to 2 years ago is one very interesting aspect in terms of parsing this data. And it's mostly good, right? It's nice to get more ratings going up than going down. As you can expect, most were fairly similar year to year. I think to go up or down, something has to change by 6% or more. So it's not going to be within the margin of error. It's going to be sort of a substantial change in the response. kind of following up that slide in terms of over time, this question was asked about the last 12 months. Has your opinion of Wilsonville changed? As you can see, those two green boxes, this represents 24% of people whose opinion has improved in the last year, more than doubling that of those whose opinion of the city has declined in the past year. So that's very encouraging for the last 12 months, particularly in light of the fact that COVID had already begun when these survey responses were taken. So I believe the surveys themselves were mailed in April. The opt-in part of the survey that was pushed on social media was in early May. So these results are being completed by people who had been housebound for a period of several weeks already. The national benchmark comparison, there's a look at kind of the cities throughout the nation that use this methodology and this company. Again, mostly positive relative to other communities. Wilsonville ranks higher in a lot of areas, and not very often do we see Wilsonville rank lower than other areas, so that's encouraging news as well. To the key findings, the good stuff. Mobility has improved and it remains a priority for residents. This, I know, is the biggest issue for people, mobility, and in the last couple years, I've spent a lot of time writing about small improvements that have been done to mitigate some of the traffic problems. Mobility ratings, as you can see, exceed the national benchmark. Those stars indicate exceeding the national benchmark, and that percentage represents the number of people that answered excellent or good when asked about the quality of those facets you see represented. So very, very positive. And the two questions there are, well, one of them there, bus and transit service, that 82%, I believe was a top 10 ranking among more than 200 or 300, I forget the exact number, but it was a top 10 result among all surveys that were asked this question. So again, as was the case 2 years ago, people are very, very satisfied with the transit services. More here. More positives. That 77% ease of bicycle travel exceeds the national benchmark, and you can see everything's gone up from 2018 to 2020 in terms of traffic flow and ease of travel, regardless of medium. All very encouraging. Alternate modes of transportation, again, not to belabor the point, people, I believe, have been improved with the improvements, and of course, alternate modes of transportation, Wilsonville ranks very highly. That's finding one. Key finding two, community members are pleased with community design. There are areas of concern. So getting to those statistics, that first one is great. People generally, most of the community agrees that their community is an excellent or good place to live. Love to see that. This area did have some trends that went down from 2 years ago, some things that we can keep an eye on in terms of overall appearances, places where people want to spend time. So a couple of categories that bear further scrutiny. The third finding was encouraging, given COVID, that the economic health and development were a positive. There were some warning signs. So you see the city exceeds the national benchmark in a few very important economic indicators. However, to the next slide, there's, I think these are the two, you saw the earlier slide about being lower than national benchmarks. These were the two areas in the whole survey over time where Wilsonville fell below the benchmarks, and that's on the concerns relative to the economy and housing costs. But to your credit, you've already begun to address that with the equitable housing. So it's nice to see a problem that the council is prepared for and the city is prepared for. Finally, this one's fun because you look at so many of the things that make living in a city great, and those numbers at the bottom are pretty resounding in terms of consensus from the community about the quality of library services, parks, schools, and public safety. Very, very good information. With some additional questions that have a few additional takeaways. As was the case 2 years ago, traffic and transportation issues were of the biggest, most common answer to the question, what is the biggest priority facing the city of Wilsonville over the next 5 years? But if you recall, 2 years ago, that percentage was 41%. So that's encouraging that some people are seeing the progress in that area and turning their attention to other areas: housing, planning, growth, expansion, economy, and of course, COVID. Can't get through a presentation without at least mentioning COVID. One other note here was the city's response in several areas. People are asked about quality of city's services. And you see there the customer service score is really high. I thought that was great to see. The quality of services provided by the city, and then again exceeding the benchmark on treating all residents fairly, which was nice. Sources of information. This slide is noteworthy in that all three of the bullet points, or the sources listed there, the messenger, the website, and the spokesman, all of those went up like 9 to 15% in terms of people relying on them as a major or minor source of news, which tells me that more people in this environment are eager to hear what's going on, and these are the sources they typically rely on. Just refreshing there with the key takeaways we already went over. And I'll leave you with one last slide from a happier time that says, whoops, where'd it go? It's gone. There was a great slide in there, it disappeared. I think it was a photo that said the people who enjoy their quality of life in Wilsonville, it was like 95%, some staggeringly high number that says that generally people are very satisfied to live here. On that note, I'll open it up for any questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Evans. Interesting stuff. It is, of course, interesting to watch the trend over time, since this is the 5th time that we have conducted this survey. There are things to work on, as in any community. Council, though, what would you like to know, ask, or present a viewpoint? Councillor Aquavault.
Thank you. I'm really glad that we do this survey because, especially now, we have several years of data, so we can look at if things have changed over time, and I think it's just a really important tool. And to do it in this way through a company that does the surveying in different parts of the U.S. and is able to put forward a product that is statistically significant and accurate, I think that's the right way to do it. I was surprised, though, in the report. I kind of expected that there would be some sort of text acknowledgement of the COVID environment. And where that did come out in some of the open-ended responses, question responses, there wasn't like a text blurb that acknowledged, that this survey took place during COVID, and as we will use it, archive kind of this data going forward, and in the future may choose to look back at it. It seems valuable to have that included, since it is such a significant thing that everybody, it's affecting everyone. So I was a little surprised. I wonder if there was some sort of discussion, with NCS when they submitted the report, where that was discussed or addressed. I found that curious, especially, you know, I think as you pointed out in the responses on the economic outlooks, surely that's in people's minds as they're talking about their economic outlook for the next 12 months or whatever it was. I wonder if, as we use the data and looking at it to the other comparative communities that they select as a benchmark, were those benchmark communities surveyed at the same time as Wilsonville? Was it during the spring or was it earlier? Because that could also really affect, you know, the responses, I guess, in what we're looking at, how our community compares to other communities, or some of the issues that our community is facing versus other communities too. So I was curious about that.
I have to dive into the appendices.
Overall, I really appreciate this. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think there's any way to answer that question, Councillor Aquavault, but we follow kind of their best practices on the time of year that's best to do these surveys. So I'm assuming that we're not unique in that, but I don't have an equivalent, you know, I can't tell you with certainty that, you know, 100% of our comparator cities do their survey at the same time.
Yeah, I think the comparable cities, they probably take from a period of a couple years. I can find out that methodology and certainly send you that information. I think it's worth noting that I have a release prepared to send out that summarizes some of these results. And so the information that is sent out and archived will certainly indicate COVID as, so that information is presented long-term as having happened within this pandemic.
Yeah, thank you. I think that makes sense.
Councillor West.
This might be a question for Council President Aquavault, but did we get good participation? Was it significant data in the sense statistically that we got a big enough sample size to really get a really good idea in this unique snapshot with COVID and what we're dealing with? Did we get enough participation to really, compared to other years, and then was it statistically, is it really good, valid data and science? And so I'm not the statistician of the group, but I was just curious about, compared to other years' participation, and then the significance and the reliability of the data is interesting to me.
Do you want to go ahead?
I'll page 193 of our council packet, so I think it's 34 of the report. But I don't think it's 34 because this was a long report. So, but go to page 193 of our council packet, and they have information on the survey methods there. Trying to remember where they did include the response rate. Is that 197, I think?
Yeah.
Which to me, the response rate looked high. So I thought that was good. And then they also do some weighting of the data. It looks like that's discussed later in the report, 199, I think, to make sure that the data being used is representative of the community in totality. So you're not working off of small numbers that could skew the results because it's only representing a subset, which I think everyone would be concerned about. But they do go into kind of their methodology and some of the practices that they use with the survey, and I thought that they did a good job with it.
So, I will tell you, 29% response rate for a mail-in survey is remarkable. So I would, and it's indicated in the fact that it's a plus or minus 4% margin of error, which is statistically obviously valid. So it's a valid, very well-designed survey.
And the methodology is consistent with what they've used other years.
when it says like 471 return surveys among the 1,700 mail, that's the 29% on the mail, and then you go down and say scientific opt-in data merged at 630 return surveys. Is that beyond the mailed surveys? Is that like I'm kind of?
Yeah, so the 149 additional, if you add the 471 to the 149, you get the 630. So the 149 was basically an opt-in survey that was basically filled out online instead of mailed in.
Okay. I see that. Okay, thank you.
And they deem that data similar enough to merge the results.
I think that Councillor Aquavall's questions, the two items that notably were lower this year, one was related to people's expectations about the economy, and one was related to their anxiety about housing. And it seems to me that it's very likely that both of those were significantly affected by the COVID environment that we're in, and I don't know how we're going to capture that except over time as we see how we come out of this. We certainly can look at prior surveys, and we were doing better on those cases in prior surveys. I don't know, except over time, how we will be able to assess really the impact of those two reductions. But
I think one thing you could do is you could look back at the 2010 survey and compare it to 2012, because I think 2010 was kind of the height of the Great Recession, right? If memory serves me correctly. And I think if we look out 2 years from now and look at the economic kind of feelings in the community, that we'd be able to kind of compare 2008 and 10 and 2020 and 22.
Bill's slide shows we only went back to 2012. Did we actually go to 2010?
2012.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's correct.
Okay. So we didn't quite capture the big recession.
Not quite, no.
Yeah. Councillor Linville.
I know that that it's very difficult for a survey like this to, adequately represent all of our citizens, and so I know that they did their best in terms of the weighting and the numbers, but I think it is important to note that 72% of the respondents had no children under the age of 17. That's a large number of people who may be looking at things other than our citizens who have children. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. And I think the other thing that's very telling to me is that 47% of the respondents indicated that their income level was $100,000 or more, when in fact the median income in the city of Wilsonville, I think, is somewhere around $55,000. So that also indicates that there's, we just need to know put it in the context of who is answering the surveys as well. So and that may be a function of who is willing to respond when asked to respond to the survey. So it may reflect a little bit of a cultural issue. It doesn't negate the responses, but I think it is important to note that we're missing the big population that have children and the bigger population that are not high income wage earners. So.
Thank you. Councillor Lehan.
Do we know what our population, to that we have to, it occurs to me we'd have to know if that was median income or median household income, because median household often includes more than one income. But do we know how many households we have with school-age children. We know that, don't we? Because that's a common
Census data.
Yeah.
Been consistently 28, 29% with a child under 18 in the household for several surveys.
Right. So it's in the 20%. So we are relatively low amount of children, school-age children, compared to Sherwood, which is one of the highest at 48 or something percent of households have school-age children. So we are not the same as some of our neighboring cities.
Yes, Councillor Linville.
Did I hear you say, Your Honor, that it's in the 20% on previous surveys, or is that what our percentage is in our population, irrespective of the survey? Just generally, do we know how many households in the community have children under the age of 18? Not in the survey. I mean, not specifically.
I don't know of any mechanism that would give us that answer other than the surveys we've been taking consistently every other year. And the surveys have consistently shown 28, 29, 29.5%. I don't remember it exceeding 30% ever of the households have a child in the household 18 or younger.
No, there is someone who does this, so that is not nothing to do with the survey. I mean, that's a common measurement. I don't know who does it, but
I don't know either.
But you can find that number for virtually any community, number of school-age children. I don't know that when I've heard it, it's not under 18, it's number of school-age children, and maybe that's a school district. That's who knows how many households have school-age children. But it's a common measurement from one community to another that doesn't have anything to do with surveys.
Okay. Councillor West?
I might be mistaken, but when we did the Equitable Housing Task Force and we did that housing and we looked at the demographics for housing, I remember the number for families and kind of the same demographic as Council President Aquavault and mine being much higher than that now, and that it was one of the larger population segments with people that had in that kind of family range demographic of life. And so I could be mistaken, but if my memory serves me right, that recent data we got on the equitable housing, that's what that data said. So I don't know, but I think that's a very astute observation by Councillor Linville.
Yeah, we're going to need to move along here unless you guys want to work till 11, but Councillor Linville.
Well, I just make one more comment, and that is that I know we have a high rent population in our community. I think we're, I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but in this particular survey, 76% of the respondents were homeowners. And I don't know that, I mean, again, it doesn't negate the responses. We just need to understand that that's the context, is that where, and that may be a function of transiency or any number of things, but we're missing that population in the survey as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Evans. Appreciate the presentation. And as always, you can see from the discussion, it's a topic that interests us all and helps us see the picture of our community, but not absolutely with clarity. We did citizen input, so I'm going to jump over to councillor comments, liaison reports, and announcements, and ask council if you can be fairly brief at this point so that we can move along. But I'll give you a chance to say a couple words if you would like. Council President Aquavault.
Yeah, thank you. I think, people that have been following our last several meetings, they know that council has been in conversation regarding how we can make Wilsonville a place that justly serves all of the people in our community. And I look forward to having those conversations continue and have that dialogue. We've recently discussed this possibility of having a DEI board or a committee and having a listening session. And I think there's undoubtedly going to be continued work and actions from these items going forward as well, additional. But I think at this juncture and in the light of events that have happened in the last few weeks, I also want to reflect on verbiage from our resolution that was passed by Council in 2017, I believe, Resolution 2626. And that resolution states that the city recognizes the inherent worth and dignity of all persons, believes all should be treated with compassion and respect, regardless of race, color, national origin, immigration or refugee status, religion, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, marital status, mental, emotional, or physical ability, age, and economic status. And I just wanted to reflect back on those words from the resolution, and also say that I appreciate this council. That resolution was passed under a different council, but I appreciate this council's work, staff's work, and the continued work of the city to push those values forward. I appreciate community members that also embrace this value and look for ways to make Wilsonville a caring and a healthy place for everyone. So I just wanted to include that in my comments for this evening, and with that, we can move on. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lehan.
Yes, I would echo what Councillor Aquavault said, and say I was particularly moved by the people who spoke at our last council meeting. We are so fortunate to have the engaged citizens that we have, and I've spoken with several of them since then. They are very engaged and ready to do that work and be there to help us do that work as well. So I think we're just extremely fortunate as a community and the Wilsonville Inclusive Communities group is a new one that is forming, and there's a second one getting underway. So there's just a lot of indication that the community is trying to be more sensitive to these issues, and so I applaud them all for that. That's about all I had to say about that.
Thank you. Councillor West.
I just want to say this period of unrest has been a very difficult time for my family, and I am very appreciative of the unifying voice coming from this council, and there has been very little daylight between us on this issue, and I echo everything that was just said, and I just want to say that I appreciate the behind-the-scenes conversations that I have been having about us being proactive immediately on policy topics and how to advocate for communities of color. And thank you to Councillor Linville, who's been able to be at one point a sounding board for me, and we had a very candid and emotional, and I had an emotional as I parent a child through this, and you on this issue, and I appreciate say that also want to say is that I just think sometimes Republic Services didn't really ask me to do this or anything, but I don't know if you guys could.
Councilor West, we're having an awful lot of hard time with your audio.
And their outreach. Can you hear me?
Well, it comes and goes.
Of course, now it's the time that it's giving me problems. I'll be quick, and I hope we don't have a problem. Is that he's an autistic child who is now 14 and goes to Wood Middle School, and he has built this amazing relationship ever since he was a little guy with Republic Services. And he wants to grow up. He wants to be work for our Wilsonville Republic Services and be a garbage man for the community. And every single morning at 6 a.m., he is out there cheering on the trucks. They all know him by name. And every single year, he would go to Republic Services, and they would do like a tour, and he would get to engage with the drivers, and he has this relationship with them. But he couldn't this year. So Republic Services did a parade in front of his house with 6 different trucks. They gave him a gift package. And he's out there. He loves to sort the recycling, and he gets it ready for his parents. He enjoys doing it. He's just enamored with these trucks. Everybody knows him by name. He's like Republic Services #1 fan, and they really have built this amazing relationship with this kid. And I was just like so touched by this story. If anybody gets a chance, it's called Republic Services #1 fan is greeted by drive-by surprise. And it's from mid-May in the Spokesman. Read it; it will touch your heart. And I'm really appreciative of Republic Services. You know, we don't always talk about our utilities, and they come and pick up our garbage, and they do this kind of job, but they really do a lot for the community. And the way that they have built this relationship with Harrison and his mother, who's lived here for 19 years, the article says, is really, really touching. Take time to read it. I mean, share it with your kids or your spouse. It's really a great article, and I just want to give a shout out to Republic Services for the relationship that they've built with us as a city, and continued outreach to really bless us.
All right, thank you. Councilor Linville.
Well, I'm not going to repeat all of the excellent comments that my colleagues have made. I certainly appreciate and agree with all of them. And I just wanted to say it's been heartening for me. It's been heartwarming for me to see how our community has responded lately. So, but I wanted to just say that since our last meeting, things have still been going on with me. I attended the French Prairie Forum meeting last week, and I will tell you, it was on our agriculture, and it was an incredible presentation. And at some point, when things settle down and we don't have meetings until 10 o'clock, it would be great to have some of those folks come and talk to us about how valuable our agricultural lands are and how much they contribute to the overall production in the United States. It's pretty incredible. I also attended, as I think Councillor Aquavault and I think our mayor did, the Middle Housing virtual tour. What a cool thing that was. There were some great models that I think are applicable to application here, or could be applied here in our community. They're beautifully done, great landscape, good creation of community. Really, really nice. It was nice to see those examples. I will also be attending Kurt Schrader's session tomorrow morning, and then I also will be with, I think, Councillor Lehan attending the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Strategy Task Force tomorrow afternoon. And we just need to remind the community that that survey is open until the 31st of July. It's on Let's Talk Wilsonville, and we really would like to have as many community input, as much community input as possible, and we're also looking for youth input on that survey as well. And then I will attend on the 23rd the Wilsonville Alliance for Inclusive Communities. I'm going to be a listener in that group for quite some time, and so that's one of the things that I think I can do. And then on the 28th of July, we will have our next meeting for the Metro Community Enhancement Committee. And so Zoom meetings continue even in COVID-19, and so I'm kind of busy. So thank you.
Well, thank you all, and I want you all to know that I so appreciate your commitment to the inclusiveness and the equity questions that are facing our country right now. There were, as you are all aware, an event or two in our community that would indicate that view is not universally held, and I think that calls on all of us to be out front and voice our commitment to those values. I do believe that most of our community is behind us in those ways, and I hope that understanding will be increased as discussion and awareness goes on, and people that may have not been as thoughtful about things may come to understand better to the advantage of the whole community over time. So it's an ongoing challenge, certainly, and I don't pretend that we know all the details or the issues at this point, but we're paying attention, so I appreciate that. Everybody all right to keep going, or do you need a break? We good? All right. Consent agenda, none listed, brings us to new business, where we have several different items on our new business agenda. Financial in nature. I think we need to take these one at a time, however, so let's start with Resolution 2829, if we could, please.
Resolution number 2829, a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Wilsonville pertaining to short-term subordinate urban renewal debt for the East Side Plan District.
It's actually for the Coffee Creek District.
Oh, it's Coffee Creek?
Yeah.
Oh, it's wrong. Oh, sorry, it's incorrect in our agenda. So it should be Coffee Creek District, not the East Side Plan District.
So it's published as East Side on my copy also. Is that not correct?
No, it's apparently not. Ms. Rodacker just corrected it.
All right.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Kathy Rodacker, the Finance Director. And this evening we have an interagency agreement between the city and the Urban Renewal Agency. In particular, this is for the Coffee Creek Urban Renewal District for the funding of the Garden Acres Road project. Just as a reminder, the way that urban renewal works, the primary funding source are property taxes, and we are required to only are able to spend those money on debt service payments. Several years ago, the overnight loan became a more popular tool as it helps to reduce our overall funding costs, borrowing costs. And this particular loan, excuse me, the overall rate is 1.8% for 1 day. So the total cost of the loan will be $25. So that's a pretty good bargain for a $500,000 loan. And that's basically what this is all about. Do you have any questions?
So is the need for this due to an expansion in scope or a increase in cost to this project or some additional work or what?
No, this is part of the original plan, was to have this as a funding source, but we had to wait, since it's a newer district, until we had a couple of years of property tax increment built up in order to do it as an overnight loan. So there's no additional cost to the project.
Yeah. Council, other questions for Ms. Rodacher on this? Can't seem to scare up any questions for you, Ms. Rodacher.
Oh, darn.
We've done this periodically, and I've been on council long enough to remember when we were going to outside lenders for this type of thing, and it was frequently quite expensive to do these sort of things, or at least relatively expensive compared to what we're doing by being able to lend this internally. So that is a good fiscal move for the city to be able to do this inside. If there are no questions, Council, what is your preference with regard to Resolution 2829? Councillor Linville.
Clicking in the wrong spot. I'm sorry, I clicked in the wrong spot. Your Honor, I move that we approve resolution number 2829.
Thank you. Councillor Linville, motion. A second by?
Your Honor, I'll second.
Second by Councillor West. Thank you very much. Discussion? If there's no discussion, I will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 2829, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous. We have 5 ayes on this. Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Brings us to Resolution 2831.
Your Honor, that was 28, oh wait, I'm sorry. Resolution number 2831, a resolution authorizing a 5-year capital interfund loan from the general fund to the Stormwater Operating Fund.
And Ms. Rodacher again.
Yep, lucky me. Tonight, we have before us a $2.5 million interfund loan between the General Fund and the Stormwater Operating Fund. As most of you will recall, the Stormwater Fund has had several large outfall repair projects in the last several years that has used up the majority of their capital project funds available. So this loan will help us to bridge that gap and keep us going for another couple of years in doing other projects besides these outfall repairs. The big one, of course, is the stormwater repairs out at Charbonneau. Overall, it's a 5-year plan, payback period, starting with a payment in January of this year, and the total interest cost will be $75,500. There any other questions?
And this is supported by increases that we made to the stormwater rates, is that correct?
Yes, this is all paid for by the rate revenue.
Okay, and in 5 years it'll pay off completely?
Yes, they just are finishing off paying the last 5-year loan. When the rates were set, we knew that we were going to have to do these periodic infusions, if you will, to keep the capital projects going on our schedules.
Okay. Council, questions for Ms. Rodacher? Not seeing questions. Is there a motion with regard to Resolution 2831?
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 2831.
Thank you. Motion to approve from Councillor West. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councillor Lehan. Thank you very much. Discussion? We need to keep ahead on our stormwater projects, and this enables us to do so. Councillor Aquavault?
And just a comment that I'm really glad our general fund can support this kind of activity, right? Isn't that a huge benefit in this case?
Absolutely true. Anything else? If there's no other discussion, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 2831, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I have unanimous, 5 in favor, no opposed. Passes 5-0. Bringing us to Resolution 2832.
Resolution number 2832, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville supporting the 2020 Transportation and Growth Management Planning Grant application to Oregon's Transportation and Growth Management Program for the Basalt Creek Development Code Implementation Project.
Good evening, Mayor and City Councilors. My name is Kimberly Reibold, Senior Planner with the City. I will pull up a quick presentation here. Wrong. Okay, it's not pulling up my slides. Let's try this. Yeah, they're both open. Here, let's close the other one, see if that helps. Won't close. Yeah, we'll just do that. So the background on this, back in 2018, the city approved the concept plan for the Basalt Creek planning area on the north side of Wilsonville, and this is an area envisioned for future industrial and employment uses. So generally speaking, it's north of Day Road, generally between Grahams Ferry Road and Boones Ferry Road. Once we've adopted that, we then adopted in 2019 comprehensive plan amendments and TSP amendments to support the lane uses that were planned for that area. And with that, in the past round of goal setting, the council adopted a goal that seeks to make the Basalt Creek area development ready as part of our work plan for the next couple of years. And in particular, one of the pieces of that is focused on implementation of development code language, because we're not quite certain that the existing industrial guidance we have in our code will meet all of the objectives that are outlined in the Basalt Creek concept plan. And so one of the things that was recommended potentially to explore was a form-based code very similar to what we have in the Coffee Creek area just to the south. And so we are applying for this TGM grant from the state because we think it would be well aligned with the work that we are seeking to do to look at the development code for this area, and in particular because there's a really strong relationship in this grant funding program between land use and transportation. And what we know from when we adopted the form-based code in Coffee Creek is that there was a particular focus on looking at how the local streets and connectivity can work with the regulations that we would put in place to support industrial and employment uses. So with that, we wish to seek your support as part of our application package that we will need to submit to the state next week for our grant application. In doing so, they expect to have decisions on grant awardees by September of this year, and then anybody who is awarded a grant would work with ODOT to finalize the project scope with the goal of starting the project in by about mid-2021. And so we expect that we would begin work on this project in the middle of next year, and that it would take approximately 12 to 18 months. And the big pieces that go along with that request is that we are seeking $125,000 through the program, and this can cover both consultant fees as well as some staff time with a $15,000 city match that would be required. And we believe this can fund the full phase of the project, both looking at the existing conditions and what pieces of the current form-based code we might want to apply to Basalt Creek, as well as any other changes we might need to make to our existing industrial standards to support that area. further work would be done after we get some initial policy direction from both you all and the Planning Commission to really refine how exactly we would go about our code development and what that might look like. So our hope in doing that is to be able to supplement some of the budgeted funds we have for this year, because we know that there are other pieces of getting Basalt Creek development ready, including some additional infrastructure work. And so we come to you seeking your support tonight for our application to receive this grant from the state. Thank you, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Questions then, Councillor Linville.
Kim, I just wanted to clarify, tell us again where the match is coming from, and was it budgeted in the original budget, or I mean, when is the award? Is it coming out of 2020 fiscal year 21 or this year?
So the current, the recently adopted budget for the 2020 to 21 fiscal year included $35,000 towards the CIP fund for Basalt Creek planning activities. And so as essentially they invoiced along the way, but that piece of the match would be invoiced and could come out of that general fund money that we already have budgeted.
Other questions for staff? Okay, well, I'm excited to see this brought forward because of the years that we spent trying to visualize and conceptualize how that area might be moved toward productive use as employment area and bring some more good family wage jobs to our community. We have to figure out how the specific plans would work. I think this grant would be a great asset in moving that work forward. The form-based code that we have initiated in Coffee Creek is still fairly untried, and we need to think carefully about whether it would apply to the Basalt Creek also. So that's a very worthwhile component of this whole plan. So if there's no other questions, Council, what is your preference with regard to Resolution 2832?
Your Honor, I move that we approve resolution number 2832.
Thank you. Motion by Councillor Linville. Is there a second? Councillor Aquavault, second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Discussion? This thing will have a fairly long tail on it if we're going to be the next couple of years worth of work.
Keep busy.
If there's no further discussion desired, I will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 2832, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye. Aye.
Passes 5 in favor, no opposition. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that brings us then to Resolution 2834.
Resolution number 2834, a resolution and order amending resolution number 2018 to further extend the local state of emergency and emergency measures as authorized by resolution number 2803. So I'll just do a brief statement on this. This will just go, this continues our ordinance or our order to be in line with the governor's, which expires, I believe, on the 3rd, and this is our first council meeting after that. It keeps us in line for additional funding if we need it, and it also gives us more local authority in terms of enforcing those orders, or at least approaching and reminding citizens about what's required and what is not allowed. So it keeps us in line and keeps us eligible for funding.
And it extends our state of emergency till when?
I think it's September 11th, which is the day after your first meeting after the governor's order expires. Now, it's highly likely. I think that's the date. Let me double. She's September 3rd. Yeah, so it takes us right to the next meeting after her order has expired. Everybody expects she'll extend it again, but we've been in this kind of the our protocol has been to extend to cover the same period of time, or effectively the same period of time. So we may extend again, but this would be our first meeting after she decides what to do on her next order. Make sense?
Okay. Yep, makes sense. It's Groundhog Month. Questions for staff? No questions? Council, would you like to do with Resolution 2834? Councilor Lehan.
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 2834.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Councilor Aquavault?
Yes, I'll second.
Second by Councilor Aquavault. Discussion? It's just how it is. Not that that's what we want, but it's just kind of how it is. If there's no discussion, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 2834, please signify by raising your hand saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Passes unanimous, 5-0. Thank you very much.
Just to clarify.
Continuing business.
I was just going to say, just to clarify, it doesn't change your vote, but the governor's order expires on September 4th. Your meeting is on the 10th, and so your resolution goes to the 11th.
Okay, thank you. Continuing business listed as none. Is that still accurate?
Yes, that's still accurate.
Okay, no public hearings. Brings us to city manager's business.
Just two quick things, Your Honor. We have the final budget, the adopted budget, with Mr. Holt on the cover. I have a copy of that budget at Kim's desk. If anybody on council would like to sign that, we would ask that you come into City Hall with your mask on and socially distance and sign the budget document. I've reached out to the family, the daughter, I believe, and told her we would try to get those books to her and the rest of her family by midweek next week. So if you would like to come in and write a note to the Holt family, please do so before close of business on Friday. And we'll reach out to, I believe Mr. Bunn on the Budget Committee also expressed that he would like to. So I'll have Kim Belize send him an email and extend that offer to him as well.
Yeah, we might offer the rest of the Budget Committee too. Several people there worked with him.
Yep, we can do that. We'll just send out a mass email and then tell them the same thing. And then the last thing I have is that we do have an opening on our Planning Commission. The recruitment is active right now and closes on close of business August 5th. So if anybody's interested, they can apply online on the city's website. And if you know anybody, city councilors, that may be interested in the Planning Commission, you should encourage them to apply. That's all.
So I think staff worked with city attorney and a couple others to try to modify the wording in our recruitment in order to perhaps make it more attractive to somebody that might come from a minority position or person of color, or certainly women also that are underrepresented in some of our positions. And we're hopeful that we can reach out more robustly and find some qualified applicants that can join our Planning Commission and diversify it a little more. So that's a special interest at this point in time. We'll see how that goes. Any legal business?
No additional legal business.
All right. Remind the council that we do have a should be very brief Urban Renewal Agency meeting immediately following. Is anyone going to need a break, or are we going to be good to go? We're good to go? All right.
Good.
We'll call adjournment on City Council at 9:35 p.m. And we need to move to Urban Renewal. Does recording need any time on this?
No, we can just go right into the next meeting, Mayor.
Okay. If we're ready, I will call to order a Wilsonville City Urban Renewal Agency meeting for July 20 of the year 2020 at, wherever we just said here, 9:36 p.m. And a roll call, please.
Member Linville?
Here.
Member West?
Here.
Member Aquavault?
Yes.
Member Lehan?
Here.
Chair Knapp?
Here. All present and accounted for. Thank you very much. We have an opportunity for citizens' input, opportunity for visitors to address Urban Renewal Agency Board on items not on the agenda. Also a time to comment on items that are on the agenda but not scheduled for public hearing. Staff and the board will make every effort to respond to questions raised during citizens' input, either before tonight's meeting ends or as quickly as possible thereafter. Is there anyone that would like to offer public testimony?
We don't have any public testimony, Mayor.
Thank you very much. First item up is consent agenda.
Consent agenda is the minutes of the June 15, 2020 URA meeting.
Thank you. Is there a motion on consent? Councillor Linville.
Your Honor, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Ms. Linville. Is there a second?
Your Honor, I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. West. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. No opposition. Thank you very much. Bringing us to URA Resolution 309.
Urban Renewal Agency Resolution Number 309, a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Wilsonville pertaining to short-term subordinate urban renewal debt for the Coffee Creek Area Plan District for the purpose of funding the construction of capital improvements by the agency.
Good evening.
Thank you. Ms. Rodacker, are you there?
I'm here. Anyway.
There you are.
Can barely see me over the podium here. So this is the adjoining resolution, if you will. In our last meeting, City Council approved the city's participation in this interagency agreement, and this is requesting the URA board to also approve the interfund loan, $500,000 for the Coffee Creek area. There any other questions?
Okay. This is the companion to the action the council took to authorize such a loan. Any questions from staff? Seeing no questions, what is the board's, I can't even talk at this hour. What is the board's preference with regard to URA Resolution 309? Ms. Lehan.
I would move to approve resolution number 309.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. Lehan. Is there a second? Ms. Linville.
Your Honor, I second the motion.
Second by Ms. Linville. Discussion? We had discussion a little bit at the other meeting on the other end of the deal. Ms. Lehan.
Oh, no, I didn't.
No.
No discussion.
Okay. Any discussion? No discussion? All right. I'm going to ask for the vote on the motion to approve URA Resolution 309. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
I see everybody. I see 5 in favor, no opposition. Thank you very much. Any further business?
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, staff. Thank you, council, very much. We are adjourned at 9:40 p.m. Appreciate it.
But we are meeting on the 3rd, right?
Yeah, noon meeting.
Noon 3rd. No, noon on the 3rd.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Bye, everyone.